And welcome to Shamrock Sports. My name is Ryan Murphy, alongside Chris Dailey and Michael Fishburne. We're actually going to start the show today with some breaking news. Marcus Burton and the Notre Dame basketball team announcing earlier today that Marcus will return for another year with the Fighting Irish. Guys, let's just get your immediate reactions here. How big of a win is that for Micah Shrewsbury's team?
Yeah, Ryan, if I had to rate this in terms of a winning percentage, 1 to 10, I'll give it an 11. To pair Marcus Burton, a guy who led the ACC in points per game, with the number 5 class in the country coming in, it can't be understated how huge this is for Micah Shrewsbury and his program, especially, being now a couple years at the helm. This is a gigantic win for Coach Shrewsbury.
Absolutely, and something that you always hear about newcoming coaches is just give them that third year, and having Burton come back for that third year is fundamental, and it's huge, right? You got a top 5 recruiting class coming in for this Irish basketball team. Burton's a hometown hero. It makes sense for him to stay, but I would like to echo something for the viewers back home and for whoever else may hear this. Notre Dame men's basketball is something that's often referred to as pitiful. A team that's often regarded as, not exactly coming up to par, right? Notre Dame women's basketball, team that's considered pretty exceptional, right? How do you have your best player on a poor team stay and your best player on a great team leave? I think it's awfully telling to what's going on in the locker room, and we're going to talk about it a lot today. Yeah,
it's a great transition into what's going on with the women's basketball program. So Marcus Burton forgoes going to the NBA draft. Olivia Miles forgoes going to the WNBA draft, but also enters the transfer portal, one of 4 players on that Irish roster to enter the transfer portal this week alone after the team was eliminated against TCU last Saturday. Guys, nearly a week later, how concerned are you about the state of this program right now?
Yeah, Ryan, a lot of questions, not a lot of answers right now. Very concerned in the sense of recruiting, however. Niele Ivey, she's been, ups and downs throughout these past couple years, but only one high school recruit coming in. It's Leah Macy, number 19 player in the country, 5-star recruit, spectacular, but severe knee injury, won't play much next year. As for the scholarship players, only 3 will play significant minutes next year. There's not enough people to even form a team right now, so a lot of concern heading into the next year, and Niele Ivey has to hit the transfer market and has to get people to come in and buy into her program because it's looking rough right now.
Michael, you concerned as well?
I mean, absolutely. How can you not be?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just such a vibe across campus that just everyone's disappointed in this team. And to echo what Chris said, this team fell from grace. They fell hard, right? Something we here at Notre Dame Television have been talking a lot is that they were ranked number 1 for 6 days, right? We finished 4-4 after being number 1. We finished just at 500 in the most important time of the season. That is pitiful. Very concerned. I feel like there's no team culture whatsoever going on. I mean, you have 4 players leaving a team that was ranked number 1 in late February. That's unheard of. It's unprecedented, and it's very bad for this Irish women's basketball team.
So you're concerned about recruiting. You're more concerned about culture. I do want to focus on the transfer portal, though. Which of the 4 players that entered the transfer portal this week is most concerning to you guys?
I think jumping out of the gate, everybody's going to go to Olivia Miles, and why not? She's a former All-American, one of the best players in Notre Dame women's basketball history, but Kate Koval, she's a freshman, a 5-star recruit who came into South Bend and after a year is calling it quits, packing her bag, and most likely going to go up to the rivals up north in Michigan, where 2 of her high school classmates are currently playing. So Kate Koval, 6'5", provides a lot of height in the paint. She was expected to be a big player next year, and that one stings for Notre Dame.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm going to give the popular take on this and reflect how upsetting Olivia Miles' exit is, right? She's someone who's projected to be 2nd overall in the WNBA draft. She's a leader on this team. As soon as senior night, she was talking about how great Notre Dame is. And I mean, I've been talking about culture a lot, but how great that culture was. And I think it kind of echoes to 3 possibilities. One, that Notre Dame no longer can pay top dollar, which I don't think is true. And I think the last 2 have some truth to them. I think Niele Ivey has a lot of work to do in this team's locker room just to maintain her own players. Recruits aren't coming in too much, looking into the transfer portal a lot, not really developing a program. And Hannah Hidalgo, in the most important time of the year, didn't shoot like herself. She played kind of selfish basketball and may have driven out her counterpart of Olivia Miles. Like, Hidalgo shot 3 for 19 against TCU. That's brutal. Like, at some point, you got to just stop shooting the rock and pass it. Like, we can't be driving down with 5 minutes left and shooting shot after shot. It's very pitiful. And looking to Olivia Miles just to show that this leadership is looking elsewhere instead of looking inward.
Well, you mentioned some of the on-the-court play. Just a quick take on that, I guess, as well. What sort of over the last month, over that stretch of 4-4 for both of you really went wrong? What was the most glaring thing for you guys? Just a quick take on that.
I think if we go back to the Florida State game, that's when it all started for me in that second half. The Irish had a 44-40 lead at halftime, and then Tanaya Latson exploded on Florida State. She's one of the best players in the country. The Irish had shut her down all throughout the first half. Explodes for 19 points. Ben Rohr and Jacob Irons were on the call for WVFI, two of our guys here at Shamrock Sports, and they were livid on the broadcast. Notre Dame took forever to employ a full court press. Lots of just weird moments of coaching, and then the players, as Michael said, at times selfish, but it all started that day against Florida State.
Just quickly for you, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think it started in the overtime periods against NC State on College game day, where it was just evident that the selfishness was coming back into play. You know, previously in those past 26 games, they're playing similar team ball, and just in the home stretch, it started to unfold, and you know, it's looking rough for this women's basketball team in the future.
Post-mortem for Notre Dame women's basketball will likely stretch into the summer months. One team that's got a bunch of positive news coming out of it is the Notre Dame women's soccer program, though. Our Girl Power will get you all caught up.
I'm Molly, and this is Kira, and we're back with another episode of #GirlPower. The Irish are looking to send 5 players to the 2026 FIFA World Cup after 4 true freshmen and a sophomore were called up to this week's United States women's national team camp roster. Freshmen Abby Mills, Izzy Engel, and Grace Restovich will be representing the Irish on the under-19 camp roster, taking 3 of 18 collegiate spots. This same trio represented the United States at the Lull Beer Under-19 Women's National Tournament in February, where Restovich served as the team captain. True freshmen Sonoma Kasica and sophomore Morgan Roy have been called to the Under-20 camp roster, taking 2 of 20 collegiate spots. In 2023, Kasica helped Team USA earn bronze at the Pan American Games. Kasica is one of 4 Under-20 roster members eligible to play in the 2026 FIFA Under-19 World Cup. These players have the opportunity to strengthen Notre Dame's global presence. Carrie Hanks, a 2009 alumna of the Notre Dame women's soccer team, made 2 appearances in the Under-19 FIFA World Cup in 2002 and 2004. The current national team roster features Corbin Albert, one of the best soccer players the Notre Dame brand has ever seen. Albert spent just 2 years with the Irish after signing with PSG in 2023 following her sophomore year. #GirlPower is excited to see what these stars can do for Notre Dame in the fall and hopes to see some more Lady Irish trading out their green for some red, white, and blue. We're Kira and Molly, and this has been another episode of #GirlPower.
Thanks so much, Kira and Molly. Again, a great job to our Girl Power team breaking down all that exciting action with the women's soccer team. Less exciting things going on for the Notre Dame women's basketball team, but that doesn't mean there are exciting things going on in the world of women's basketball. We welcome in Jimmy Collins to the show, back here with Chris Dailey, Michael Fishburne, and myself, Ryan Murphy, to talk a little bit about the women's basketball Final Four. Guys, let's start with you, Michael. What are you kind of most looking forward to out of this women's Final Four?
Yeah, I'm not looking at a particular team. I'm looking at an individual player, and I'm looking at Paige Buckers. You know, she has had a lot of injuries over the course of her career, but she still played phenomenal basketball. I'm looking to her to excel. I mean, as of this game against Oklahoma, she entered to be 3rd overall in UConn in women's points in history, right? Like, that is a very, very significant thing, especially for a program such as UConn, and that's with her having 30 less games than the 2 women in front of her. So I'm very excited to see what she can do in this Final Four, and I think that she's going to make her name known.
Absolutely. What about you, Jimmy?
I'm also going to take it away from a specific team. I'm looking at a potential specific matchup in head coach Dawn Dailey against UConn head coach Gino Auriemma. You have 14 total rings in that potential matchup, which would be in the national championship game. 11 for Gino and 3 for Dawn Dailey. And you kind of look at that and you think, well, Gino might be the greatest of all time head coach in women's basketball, the GOAT, as some would say. And then now Dawn Dailey, who could be the up-and-coming GOAT. So I'm going to go with that potential matchup as the biggest thing to look forward to in this women's Final Four.
And to go off of Jimmy, speaking of Gino Auriemma, he's a guy who won in the 90s, won in the 2000s, won in the 2010s. He could win in 4 decades now as head coach of this UConn women's basketball team. As a sports history buff, that is just what I am looking out for. And then their assistant coach, Chris Dailey, nice name right there. She's been with them every step of the way. So I'm looking forward to seeing that coaching staff. And hopefully for UConn and Chris Dailey, they can win a national championship.
You got a little personal stakes in it.
I do, yeah.
Let's go to some picks. Let's start with you, Michael. Who you got coming out of this Final Four? We got the bracket up here for you.
Absolutely, and these two are the betting favorites for a reason. I'm taking the Huskies and I'm taking the Gamecocks to meet in the middle. Now, they have played previously this year, and I do think UConn will win this matchup again. I'd like to remind the viewers, UConn did beat USC in Cola turf, so they beat the Cox in Cola. You know, they have that experience, they have that talent. And Paige Buckers, I mean, she's going to write her name in the history books. Gino, I mean, he already is the GOAT. But if there's anything else he needs to do, this national championship, like Chris was saying, will be the fourth across 4 decades for him. Will be phenomenal, and I think the UConn Huskies have everything that they need to get this done. Jimmy?
I'm going to go sort of similar. I think UConn beats UCLA in a close game. I think Lauren Betts is really going to keep UCLA in that game. I don't think many people think that one's going to be close. I do. And then I've got South Carolina over Texas, and not as close, but just that's more naturally going to be a closer matchup. But I'm going to take Dawn Staley and South Carolina to repeat. I think UConn's destined to make it to the finals, but I think Dawn Staley is destined to take the throne as the best coach in women's college basketball.
All right, so you see a little bit of a usurping of power going on there. All right,
exactly.
Chris, I feel like you kind of already gave us a little bit of
I did. Let's kick it back to UConn and then South Carolina in the final. I think that's the consensus amongst all of us. However, UConn and Paige Buckers, as Michael mentioned, has just been the best player in college basketball all year long. She does not have a ring to her name, and it's crazy because I feel like growing up, you would always see UConn in the national championship game. They haven't won since 2016.
Yeah.
There's a little more to that right there, and Paige Buckers, she wants to get up to Breanna Stewart's level, and she can with a national championship. Give me the Huskies.
Well, you guys are all going chalk here a little bit. I can win the student media bracket pool if UCLA pulls off a couple upsets, and that would mean I'm beating Jake and Tyler, who are like everyone knows here, like they win in every sort of bracket pool, and it's really annoying. So I'm picking UCLA. I know my picks don't count; they're not down on the bottom there or whatever. But yeah, I'm hoping for UCLA for the personal bragging rights, I guess. Anyway, we'll talk the next Final Four, the men's Final Four, after this quick break. But in the meantime, there's plenty of news to get you caught up on around the Notre Dame campus. Francesco and Leah have your Friday headlines.
Hi. I'm Francesca Bartolacci alongside Leo Romano, and we're here with your Friday headlines. The Notre Dame men's lacrosse team posted a 14-7 win over number 11 Duke this past Saturday. Jack Taylor on attack helped lead the Irish to victory with 5 goals and 2 assists. Tomorrow, they will take the field against number 7 Syracuse and their 22nd overall meeting between the two. Their series is split 11-10 in favor of Notre Dame. The Irish came in at number 5 in the national polls this week, up from number 7 last week. They have just 4 games remaining in their regular season before the ACC tournament begins May 2nd.
Football's blue-gold game is coming up next weekend, which makes it a good time to look back on some of the new additions the team made in January. At defensive tackle, Jared Dawson from Louisville and Elijah Hughes out of USC come in looking to replace future NFL stars in Riley Mills and Howard Cross. Former Virginia Cavalier wide receiver Malachi Fields will also join Notre Dame this upcoming season. The graduate transfer recorded over 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns the past 2 years. Other big names include tight end Ty Washington from Arkansas and kicker Noah Burnett from North Carolina. Most game ready of the group, though, is nickelback Devonta Smith from Alabama, who registered 30 total tackles in 2024. As much as Coach Freeman speaks on majoring in high school recruiting, it sure seems he is picking up a double major in the portal.
This weekend in baseball, the Irish will host a 3-game home series against Virginia Tech after coming off a close 5-4 loss against Western Michigan on Tuesday. In that game, the Irish fought back from a 5-1 deficit at the top of the 8th, leading into a 9th-inning comeback. Freshman Bino Waters led the comeback, going 2 for 5 with a double, RBI, and a run. Despite their efforts, the Broncos were able to fend them off to secure the win. The Hokies enter the weekend 5th in the ACC standings, while Notre Dame sits at last. Softball will host their Strikeout Cancer Weekend at Melissa Cook Stadium against the Pittsburgh Panthers starting today at 4 p.m. The Irish have won 3 of their last 5 games and are coming off a 10-10 tie against Northwestern on Tuesday.
On a similar note, the wait is over. The South Bend Cubs return to action tonight at 7:05 opening up against the Beloit Skycarp. Right-hander Jackson Wiggins, the 2023 second-round draft pick, is expected to take the mound as the starting pitcher. And on Tuesday, April 8th, your South Bend Cubs welcome you back to Four Winds Field for their opener against Peoria. And with that, we'll send it back to Chris, Jimmy, Minnow, and Ryan.
Thanks so much, Francesca and Leo. Great job with those Friday headlines. We're back to talk the men's Final Four. Michael Fishburne, Jimmy Collins, Chris Dailey, and Ryan Murphy here with you. A lot of chatter going into this Final Four about just how chalky it's been. 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. A lot of debate. Is this good or bad for the sport? What do you think, guys?
I personally think it's great for the sport. And a conversation a lot of people have been echoing is that there's 4 1 seeds because of name, image, and likeness. And I just want to shut that down on how not true that is. I want to remind people of 2023, a Final Four that didn't have a single seed below, but higher than 4, right? You got UConn at 4, Miami at 5, FAU at 9, and San Diego State at 5. So I don't think NIL has anything to do with it. So if people are looking for NIL for an answer, respectfully, I think you're wrong. I just think that it's going to be a great Final Four in the sense that, you have 4 teams that have huge fan bases, right? Florida won national championships in the 2000s. Duke, they speak for themselves. Auburn, looking to come in and maybe do Charles Barkley some good. And then Houston, obviously another touted program. And I mean, from a ratings perspective, I imagine what the ratings on these games are going to be just because of those fan bases. I mean, it is great for the sport. It's great for, fans back home. And I think people screaming that it's 1 seeds are just upset that their brackets were busted. So.
I think that not only is it good for the sport, I think that this is the best Final Four we have ever seen.
Wow.
This is only the second time that there have been all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. And the reason I think that this is the best Final Four we have ever seen, because in the last 20 years, do you know how many teams we've seen with a net rating above 35 make the Final Four? In the last 20 years.
We got someone back saying 1. So
I'm going to go with 4.
4.
Wow.
This year, we have 4 in the Final Four alone. Okay. So I think that these are the best 4 teams in the country by a wide margin, and I really think that this is going to be the best basketball that we've seen in the Final Four ever.
Wow. Well, what do you think, Chris?
Well, it's great basketball. I can't dispute that. Of course, it's great to see the 1 seed, see the teams who have dominated all year long. I think the lore of March Madness is the underdogs. Oh. It's the San Diego States, the Florida Atlantics, and you don't see these teams in the Final Four this year. And I talked about sports history. Back in the day, in the 1975 season, March Madness and the NCAA expanded, and then the Sweet 16 was established. Mm-hmm. Since that moment, 7 conferences at least have been represented in the Sweet 16 every single year. Until this year, it's just the power conferences who are really, majorly represented. And then right here in the Final Four, you got SEC, ACC, and then, Houston are the outside looking in, but still it's
Houston, right?
Still Houston, a great program, and it stinks for the sport because you love March Madness, you love the underdogs, and you just don't see it this year.
I mean, I still think there's plenty of underdogs. Yeah. I'm from South Carolina, and Clemson got their butts kicked by, McNeese State and Will Wade. So, I guess as far as you go, like 2023, you're not seeing your FAU, you're not seeing your STSU. But I just think this year is unique in that the best teams are the best teams for a reason. They're not just ranked high because they won the games at the right time. These are 4 teams that have been dominant all year. And sure, it's March, and we want it to be great, and we want to have all that, spirit around the Final Four. But from what Jimmy and I were saying, this is going to be cinema.
I do think that the question that I've been asking myself this week is, if there was a Cinderella team going up against one of these teams, the game would not be close. One of these teams would beat that Cinderella team, or whatever team would have made it, by probably 20, maybe even 30 points. So I do think that these are the best 4 teams, and this is going to be the best basketball that we're going to see.
Well, I see a lot of poaching going on as well. A lot of the Cinderella teams, you go back to Florida Atlantic, well, you got a bunch of those guys on the Florida Gators team right now. You look at Walter Clinton Jr., he is a transfer from the MAC. So a lot of these guys come from these Cinderella teams. It's a thing of the past now with NIL, and I don't think we're ever going to see a very diversified Final Four in the sense you just get these crazy teams that everybody loves that makes March. And it's the beginning of the end.
Well, it's a hot debate no matter what.
Yeah.
That's what we determine. And also, it's entertaining no matter what, whether you're going to be entertained by upsets and underdogs or by great basketball, as we've talked about. I do want to get you guys' picks on the games, who you think is going to win it all. Michael, let's start with you. Who you got coming out of this bracket?
Absolutely. I'm going to reiterate my national championship pick 2 weeks ago. I think Duke's going to win it all, so I do think that they're going to beat Houston, and I think convincingly so. I mean, you got Con Knuppel, you got Tyrese Proctor, and I haven't even mentioned the man, the myth, the legend, Cooper Flagg. This is a team that's deep. They have every piece that they need. And for a year that was weak for the ACC, right, I mean, not a single team made it past the round of 32 except for Duke, right? I think that Duke stands alone in representing that conference, and they will stand alone in this weekend holding that national championship trophy. As for this side, I do think that the Florida Gators take it over Auburn. They played a lot this year back and forth. I just think Florida's playing better basketball right now. I mean, talk about Walter Clayton. What an end to the game that he just had. I think that they're playing arguably their best basketball right now, but I mean, that game can go either way, but just give me the Duke Blue Devils to take it all.
You got Duke over Florida. How about you, Jimmy?
So the bracket that I made pre-tournament had Duke beating Auburn in the national championship game, and I'm going to stick with that. But I do think that the Houston-Duke game is going to be a lot closer than people think. I do think that Houston is going to get out to a lead early. And the reason that I think that is because it's tough for teams to adjust playing in a basketball arena to playing in a football stadium. That's a tough adjustment early in the game. And I think Houston played their last 2 games at Lucas Oil Stadium. So they've played 2 games in a football stadium. I think they'll get out to an early lead, but I do think Duke is just too much. Kind of like what Michael was talking about with Proctor, Knuppel, and obviously Cooper Flagg. That's the deepest team in the country. I think their length is going to carry them over the top. I think their passing is the best in the country, so I think they'll beat Houston. And then on the other side, kind of similar, I think that Auburn doesn't rely as much on the three-pointer as Florida does, and I think it's going to be a tough adjustment for Florida to get past Auburn. I think Auburn takes it in a very, very close game.
So 2 for Duke so far.
And then Duke beating Auburn in the championship.
Right.
Yeah, my issue with this Duke Blue Devils team is all 3 teams right here in this L formation have been battle-scarred. They've been in tight games so far in March Madness. The Blue Devils have not. Arizona gave them a little bit of a run for their money in the Sweet 16, but at the end of the day, it was always Duke. Arizona did not have a chance in that game, and for that reason, I think it's going to be Houston to surpass Duke, go into the national championship, but they're going to fall short to the Florida Gators. Walter Clayton Jr., no one is playing more confident basketball than him. March is all about stars. At times, it's about individuals. Walter Clayton Jr. is that guy for the Florida Gators team. Not many guys who drive into the paint and then do a 180, go back beyond the arc, hit a three-pointer to seal the deal. That's exactly what Walter Clayton Jr. did against Texas Tech, and I think the Gators are going to win the national championship.
All right, so you're the odd man out on both counts, going with Florida. Any last words?
I think that the experience argument is tough because it feels like every game that Duke's played, it's like, oh, this is the team that could get to Duke. Oh, if Caleb Love gets hot, they're going to beat Duke. Oh, Alabama made 25 three-pointers in a game. Oh, they could do it again and beat Duke, and they haven't, and it hasn't been close. So I don't know. We'll see.
I kind of want to echo what Jimmy's saying. Him and I have kind of been going back and forth on this a little bit, agreeing with each other, going against our friend Chris Dailey. But you know, I want to give Houston a little bit of credit, but I don't know if you're subscribing to the Trey Cote Kool-Aid of listening to him talking about Houston winning the national championship. But I mean, this Duke team won significantly against Alabama. You have to look at recent performance, and I mean, no matter what, we're going to get great basketball.
Yes.
No matter what, we're going to get great basketball. Thanks so much to Micah Fishburne, Jimmy Collins, Chris Dailey, providing all of your basketball insights for this weekend and what's been in the last week, a high-drama week for Notre Dame women's basketball as well. Thanks to our girl power team of Kira and Molly and Francesca and Leo who had your Friday headlines. Everyone in the back, it's been a great show. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for watching Shamrock Sports.